if I'm starting a pod and I have no idea what I should start it about, what would be your recommendation as to how you figure that out?
What are you the most experienced in? What can you say that you're gifted and that you're very knowledgeable in? What areas? So some people are very knowledgeable in music. Some people are knowledgeable in fashion. What areas does your expertise lie? And then from there you can begin to build on that, and then you can start to decide, well, what should my podcast be about? Don't start talking about stuff you don't know about.
What's up, good people? Welcome back to the Believers in Business podcast. I am your host, Brian Adamson, and today I have somebody here that's going to make your lives a lot better. Oh, I could say that emphatically because when you look at this industry and how many people that it is putting into the industry every day, then I know that you're probably thinking about doing exactly what this young lady specializes in. And so I have the pleasure, the honor to have my sis here today, Mykeya Latia Barrett, newly married Mrs. Barrett. Okay, that part didn't make the screen, and I'm making that clear, fellas, before we get started today. Let's not start no nonsense, okay? So, look, as I said, sis is an international podcaster. She is an actress. She is a disciple maker. She is a wife. She is a twin. She is a lot. And y'all gonna find out just how much she is today. And so, sis, welcome to the show.
Thank you for having me. I'm so excited. Thank you for just thinking of me. I'm honored to just be here. I made it to the Believers in Business podcast. That's a big deal.
Yeah, well, it is a big deal. Let's start there, okay? So, sis has many talents, as I mentioned, and one of which is helping people get their podcast going. So, she actually sits in the seat solely responsible for putting together this amazing Von Shui for me to be able to come on here and do my thing and, hopefully help and better y'all lives as a part of listening to this show. And so, I can't, if you out there trying to figure it out as I was, figure it out no more. You just need to reach out at this point. Okay. But so
That's
yeah, let's start there, right? Let's just start with where are you at in life today? I've been seeing movie clips, I've been seeing podcasts, I've been seeing all kind of stuff. So let us know where you at today.
So today we're, like you said, I'm a lot, so we do a lot. But today we're running a podcast show. We're focusing on just interviewing more business owners to really provide breakthrough for our audience. And we're just serving. We truly just are in the space to serve, just being obedient to what God wants, continuing to, let people know his word and who he is,
Mm.
and just continuing to create disciples, as you said earlier. I like that.
hmm I just call it like it is, right? Let's just be clear about what we do out here in these streets, right? So the complexities of uh obviously multifaceted actress, podcasting, serving, but newly married though, right? Let's talk about that for just a second because you know many struggle one just in marriage in general, right? I mean that's just what it is. Marriage in it of itself can be challenging, especially in that first year. For me, it was probably the first 15 years. But hey, some take longer to learn than others. You know what I'm saying? But the reality is, you know, it's also challenging to run businesses. And so, like, how has that transition been for you? What are some things that you've been able to do that you think has been helpful? And maybe that could be helpful to the audience who may be in a very similar situation.
As it pertains to being newly married and running a business,
Yeah, that
correct?
part. Exactly.
Well, I'll be honest. I would say I'm a bit blessed. I will say that because so my husband, he put me in a position to where I can focus on the business, and I'm not, stressed out about, closing this client, or, or not even just having support, if you
Mm.
will. So I've just been very grateful to be able to focus on sharpening my skills and continuing to build the business. And then he's always supporting. Like, he made sure everything was set up for today's call, making sure to give me my cues and everything. He's really like my producer for real. It's funny because when we were just dating, we weren't even married, not even, I didn't know we were in a relationship at the time. We would joke and I would tell him, like, "Are you going to be my manager someday?" And we would always make this a joke. And we revisited the conversation. I said, I think we probably need to take this serious because he does such a good job with like schooling me. I always say I'm in Professor Barrett's class because he will make me run through, what are your questions? Okay, what are going to be your responses? And making sure that I'm just fully equipped. So for me, I would say that I am very blessed because he understands he's an entrepreneur himself. So he gets it. He's not intimidated at all about, the position that I'm in. He just really wants to push me forward and he makes necessary sacrifices. And I just really appreciate it because he doesn't always have to. And I actually just told him the other day, like, thank you for waking up in the morning and you going to work and allowing me to continue to, push my dream forward. So I'm just grateful. I would say to someone who is whether newly married or just married and maybe one person's an entrepreneur and the other isn't, I would say try your best to just support your spouse. Like try your best to just get interested in what it is that they're doing, and vice versa. I do it for him too. Just because he supports me, I find new ways to support him. Now I think I'm a real estate developer. I know how to create a foundation. I know how to I think I know performers or what have you. I don't, but I do it all. I tell people all the time, so I'm a developer. I got several houses and, tenants and what have you. So, I'm multifaceted as well. So
Yeah.
I would just say, learn, become interested in what your spouse is doing and support them.
Hey, real quick, if you are a coach, consultant, business owner, aspiring business owner, you want to start making more money online. Maybe you stuck at that 5, 10, 20K a month ceiling. Maybe some of you are still in ideation mode. You're just like, I got to get out of this job. I know I got something in me I need to give birth to, but you can't quite figure out how to either scale it or start it. Make sure you come to our Purpose to Profits Challenge. My partner David and I are going to be showing you how to successfully grow your business online, helping you with content creation, helping you with marketing strategies, helping you with sales, fulfillment, the whole nine. Showing you our exact systems on how we went from not making 6 figures a year, not multiple 6 figures a year, but 6 figures a month and even sometimes 6 figures in a day. If that sounds like you, make sure you click the link in the description, sign up for the challenge. General admission is only $17. All right, $47 for the VIP. If you want to spend 1 hour exclusively with David and I each day and ask all of your questions specifically, make sure you get the VIP ticket. We will see you there and get back to the episode. I was listening to, I don't know, something on social media, right? And I forget the guy's name, so forgive me, but he's a 93-year-old billionaire, multi-billionaire. And he was being asked the question of what's one of the most important decisions you have to make as a business owner. And he said, the most important decision you have to make in business is who you marry. A multi-billionaire who was married for 67 years before his wife passed said that the most important decision he said that would either propel you or it would be the very thing to bury you in business. And as I reflect on that, and after listening to you and having my own experience, I couldn't agree more, right? And I see and I listen to my colleagues and such that have not had such a good go in those areas, and they struggle a lot, right? And so, big shout out to Hubs for being your number one supporter. And I think you're 100% correct. Like making sure that we constantly remind them of what we appreciate about what they do to contribute to the overall efforts, right? And just, making sure that we have a vision-oriented conversation, because although we may not be doing the same thing, we still going the same place because we decided to get in this car together, right? So let's be clear about what that destination is. I love that. Okay, now, there's people out there that want to start podcasts, right? As I started at the opening of this, everybody out there now is trying to figure out, what should I do, right? One, do you believe that everybody should be podcasters? And if so or not, who should be, who shouldn't be?
No, everyone does not need to be podcasters. That is a very great question. And I think when I first started podcasting, I would have been an advocate. Everyone become a podcaster, but no. As you can see in today's media, a lot of people are just talking. So to answer your second question, if you do want to become a podcaster, I would say you have to have a message. You have to have a true desire to impact, whether it be your audience, your guests, whoever it is, but like have a mission behind you. I wouldn't prefer someone just getting on the camera and just talking about opinions or everyone's different. Like, it's okay to be clear on what your niche is, but whatever your niche is, just be clear on the messaging behind it. Because we just see a lot. We have to think too, there's another generation looking at you, one behind you, and they're looking up to you. So whatever you decide to put on these platforms, it's important because it's bigger than you. It's not just about the whatever monetization you're trying to receive. It's about who you are also impacting. So I would recommend anybody who does decide they want to do a podcast, be clear on what your messaging is, on what your mission is, and go for it though. It's fun. I think it's therapeutic personally.
Yeah.
It's a great time.
Yeah, facts. No, look, of all the things that I get to do in business, right? And I say get to, not got to, the podcast is the thing that I get to do that I enjoy the most. It really is therapeutic, right? And it's funny because to your point about the messaging and what we're putting out, I was texting with my consultant the other day. He had sent me some meme on Facebook and it jogged my memory back to 2 decades ago and some of the stuff that was happening during that time in my life. And I told him, I was like, bro, I could be all kind of viral if I shared half the stories of what I used to live. But I say I'm just still a little leery about statute of limitations. I just don't believe that. I'm not putting that out there. You know what I'm saying? But
Yeah.
while I say that facetiously, the other part is I just don't know how much value to add to my audience, right? Based off of where I am today and who I'm called to help. Because you said something that's very important. Like who your audience is will determine what your messaging should be about. I'm not on this. I don't get on the podcast to talk about what I want to talk about. I'll talk about what I believe needs to be talked about that I desire to talk about. I hope y'all caught what I just said.
Yes.
That's the difference, right? I'm talking about what I believe needs to be talked about that I desire to talk about, not just all my remember when stories and all my war stories, and knowing that many people didn't live a life like that it'll be intriguing enough for clickbait, but that ain't really the audience I'm trying to attract. I'm looking for people that want to live a level 10 life. And those are the people that subscribe to this pod, and I'm going to feed them those things requisite to help them get there. And so when you look at yourself, how long you been in podcasting now?
Oh, almost 10 years.
Wow.
I started off, it was really like a TV show.
Okay.
So I started doing television and it was essentially podcasting. I still to this day am an advocate for having a talk show, right? So I started there. And then friends were like, podcasting is becoming a thing. This was in 2017. And I was like, I don't know if podcasts will pop. I said, I don't know. We'll see. I'm not going to hold you up. I was not an advocate for podcasting. I was not. It took me a minute to come around. And they were like, no, we need to be on multiple platforms. And I wanted to just focus on one area. And I quickly learned podcasting is actually becoming bigger. And this was in 2017. Like, podcasting was very new in that time. Some people, were podcasting even before then, but it took me about 2018. So I was like, okay, let me get on other streaming platforms. Like, this is actually, some people are audio listeners and not just visual. So, but yeah, so I've been doing that for almost 10 years now.
That's a long time. Right. Because to your point, podcasting really just got, I would say in the last 3 years, right, to where the Joe Rogans, when they got $100 million contract, the Wallow and Gillies, rumored to have done the same thing. So it's now become the new media, right? People like to consume media differently. They don't want the talking head pundits anymore. They want real people having real conversations about real things. And so it's a phenomenal space to be in. So in that, though, so if you've been doing this for essentially 10 years, and let's just say going back to 2017 till now, how much, if any, do you think your audience has changed or your approach to podcasting has changed?
Okay, before we talk about the audience, I have changed. Woo, Ooh, when you said that, okay, let me be clear. I've actually done like a thorough search and deleted every video I could find. It was that bad. Like I have completely changed. Like we on Believers in Business podcast, and I tell you, I wasn't as saved as I am today. So yeah. So the audience, it wasn't even about, and this is actually more, I'm so happy you said it. This is probably why I'm more of an advocate for your messaging, is because we were very focused on like trending topics, like what's going on, in the news today, which is cool. It's nothing wrong. Like you said, this has become more of like a news platform, if you will. But like at the time, we were just trying to entertain. That's all that I was trying to do. I was informing a bit because some of the questions we would ask, it was a group of us, mind you. So I was informative. We were asking like lifestyle questions, but it was more to have trending conversations versus like, I'm really trying to impact somebody or educate you. I really want to like talk about the silly stuff that's going on in life. So I have changed. I have grown up. Okay, let's start there. I have truly grown up. And now it's more
Praise the
of
Lord. Right. Praise the Lord.
okay, he
Yeah.
gets the glory. I don't know what I thought I was doing. Crazy. But yeah, but now I would say my audience has matured too, because there's been a lot of people who still remember me. The show that we used to do was called the Spill 313. I had people who still like, I still follow you from there.
Time out.
Yeah, I don't know why.
She just can't slide what she just said. She got me over here spitting on myself. You just can't slide what you just said in there. Okay, 'cause she gave us all the context.
Yeah.
Y'all noticed that, right? We got all the context, and then she was like, "Yeah, it was called the Spill 313." The what? You know what I'm saying? That part.
Real quick.
That part. So I got a very clear understanding of what was. It's funny because I heard Sarah Jakes Roberts once say that had she not become a pastor, she'd have probably been in TMZ. She was like, she was the TMZ of the family called her Miss TMZ. And so when I heard the spiel, I was like, I kind of got an idea of what may have been going on back then.
And the tagline, I'm not gonna, don't ask, but I'm just say the tagline itself was like, I know my dad wanted to jump through the screen and be like, please stop recording. Because like what, like please, you know what though, he was a bit supportive, I will say. But he probably was like, the language was crazy. It was crazy. And that I had to grow up. Like I really had to grow up. But I'll be honest though, from that transition, I wasn't fully grown up. Like I decided, okay, cool, I'm gonna chill out. Me, it ended up going to, me and a group of people, we ended up going our separate ways. I started my own show, and then I had a videographer. Now, at this point in my life, I was getting more serious in my faith walk. It was like, okay, we need to really buckle down. You're growing up. I think I was like 23 at the time, and it was like, it's time to, really buckle down, really get into his word. You pray, but you go to church, but let's take it serious. So I would say I was still dibbling dabbling like in the world and trying to be in my word all at the same time. And so it got to a point where I had a videographer, and he was like really deep into his belief system. Like it was very inspiring. And so I had an interview with a pretty renowned artist today, and I was supposed to do the interview.
Don't come on here being shy. Who was it? Put it out there.
I mean, it depends on who the audience is. It depends on who the audience is. Trust me.
Okay.
We'll talk about later.
Okay. All right.
Yeah, I don't know that, but yeah. So yeah, we'll talk about it. Trust me.
Let me just close the closet door. Let me close the closet door back. My bad. Okay. All right. Continue.
I learned from my audience, though, some of the artists that I interview, how they would get caught up in cases because of association. So let me just be clear. Okay. Yes, I'll just be real clear. Yeah, be real clear. But I was supposed to do this interview. My videographer called. It was me and my sister at the time doing the show. He called. He was like, listen, I can only do stuff for God. He like, if it's not about God, I just can't do it. So I know we're supposed to, do this interview tonight, but I just can't. He was like, y'all supposed to be y'all in y'all word. Y'all say y'all for God, but I can only associate with people who are really doing that. And so like my jaw dropped. I was like, oh. And so, but a part of me wanted to be upset, but a part of me was like, this is a good friend. Like, he is so right, And so I remember we canceled the interview. The day we canceled the interview, this artist got signed to a major label the same day. So he was actually going to talk about the signing on the interview. I didn't know it though. But granted, some things started taking place in cases and all of that. So in the long run, I realized God was really preventing us from being associated in any capacity. Like, I don't know fully, but in any capacity, I know God was really like redirecting us. From that conversation, I took a year off. Like, I stopped doing the podcast. I just started doing, I stopped doing that. I just started doing inspirational videos because at this point I'm like, I know God is still giving me a calling to speak, but I'm not aligning myself with the right people. I've been aligning myself with people to get me more, followers, more engagement, views, or what have you. It wasn't like this person has a deep story and this person's going to impact my audience like it is today. Then it was, I'm interviewing entertainers, and it was cool. Like, I'm super grateful because they didn't have to say yes, even for who they are, but it helped me to realize, like, who do you really want to talk to, and who do you want to interview, and who are you trying to talk to, basically, with your audience. So yeah, that was a whole little story, but it was
No,
a good
that's a
time.
good one though, because what I also heard you say, you said a lot, but what I also heard you say was, man, it's good. God gave you proof positive of what it could look like to be fully Him and fully you at the very same time in this space by the person who told you they unequivocally weren't compromising being associated with such foolishness because of what they stood on and stood for.
Yep. And in those moments is when you have an opportunity, you have a choice to make. And you can go left or you can go right. And I think a lot of times people get distracted by the shiny things, and they go right or they go left, and they say, oh, this is what I want. And you get distracted, and you really are being pushed away from what God's messaging truly is. The enemy will use these trinkets and this, people think it's fruit. Just because you have on a $1,000 or $1 million chain does not mean you are producing good fruit. It just doesn't mean that. And a lot of times we get confused, especially with social media. And I'll say, when I tell you, it was nobody but the Lord who really like stripped me from those things before I could even get too deep into that and get too deep into being distracted by the trinkets and just the followers, the entertainment, or whatever it is. And so you're right, because if I would have went the other way, I would have thought it was all me. I would have thought it was all me making this happen. And no, He wouldn't allow it.
So you take a year hiatus, you come back. One, what prompted you to come back? Because many would have just been like, I quit, it's over with, right? So one, what prompted you to come back? Secondly, what was different about when you came back?
God would not He wouldn't, like, I don't know how to better say it, but He wouldn't leave me alone. Like, He literally would not let me leave this platform alone. Now, let me be clear. It's so funny. I used to be very camera shy, like so afraid of a camera. So as when people get in front of cameras, I help them through because I understand the fear. Like, very awkward, very
typed,
weird.
I don't believe you, just so you know.
Did they? Where you at? No.
It was like camera shot. Girl,
No,
stop playing.
Nah, I had to, like, this is an object. So I used to be very camera shy, right? That was the first one. Overcame that. Did the show just for fun. I had no passion, no reason to do it. I didn't know. I was in a place, I'm like, I was reading books. I wanted to know, like, oh, what's my gifts and my talents? What do you want me to do? So that's why I did that. Then when I did the show, I fell in love. Like, my friends, when we did the show, then they would tell you to this day, we were up till 2 a.m. and we were having a meeting about the show. They thought it was time to go to sleep. I said, absolutely not. We are meeting. Like, this is important. Like, it's 2 a.m. I look back on it now, like, Mikey, you could have given him a break. But maybe I probably still wouldn't today. But then, like, I wasn't playing. Like, you got to know, I was like, every time God, He just kept reminding me of that fire He put in me. So, like, even though I took a year off, He was just still reminding me of, like, you can never deny that feeling of impact, that feeling of, like, really operating your gifts. You can never deny it. And so then I was like, okay, God, I'm gonna go all in. I'm gonna just try it again. And so I started buying equipment. I had saved some money, and I was like, okay, God, I just want to see what you're gonna do here. So I spent all the money I saved, and I bought cameras that I'm literally using, or lights that I'm using to this day, like right now in this moment.
Wow.
I spent every dime. I bought a camera, bought all the stuff. And I was still scared though. So I just started doing inspirational videos, like I was telling you. Like, I'm just gonna do these inspirational videos and I'm gonna see what happened. And then over time, like, God just kept on reminding me, like, it was this fear of like not doing it the right way, not getting the right audience, who's gonna be on who's gonna want to be on my show. Like, I don't want to be chasing after, the wrong thing. It was just so many thoughts. And so my sister, Mykeya, she was like, just make a video and ask people to be on your show. Tell them you need guests. I was like, what? That's weird. I'm not doing that. She was like, yeah, I think I still have the video probably on my page to this day. And she was like, people don't know what you need if you don't ask them. And I'm like, that is the weirdest thing ever. Like, I said, you think so? And now that I think about it today, that's silly not to. But then thought it was crazy. So I did it. I got so many people messaging me, commenting, I want to be on the show. I have a story. But granted, not one single person that commented were my actual guest. This is where God comes in to show your level of obedience. So I put the video out. I trusted that whoever was supposed to be on the platform, they were going to get a hold of the video. I go to Sam's Club the next day. I'm loading a cart full of groceries. This gentleman walks up. Can I help you with your groceries? I said, yes, please. Help me with my groceries. Come to find out, he super dope. Early Mac is his name, artist. And so we just started chopping it up. And he's like, oh, you got the podcast? I'm like, yeah. So he's like, oh, let's do the show. So he was one of my first guests.
Wow.
From Sam's Club.
Wow.
Another opportunity, I went to a poetry night. Now I share this. I like to write poetry. I love writing poetry.
Really?
And so my sister, I do. I love writing poetry.
Do
I
you
really
do spoken word as well, or you just like to pen it?
Well, I just keep it to myself. Okay. I do. One day I'll put it out. But this is what happened though. I went to a poetry night. My sister-in-law was like, you should go and recite one of your poems. I said, girl, I'm not going up there. And she's like, go do it. So I went up there, did my poem. And this lady heard the poem. She loved it. And she was like, oh my goodness, I love the poem. I heard you have a podcast. I would love to be on your show. She's a social worker, had an incredible story. So long story short, after me being obedient, is when people started coming to me. It was just constantly, they were gravitating. It wasn't even about it. The video was a part of it, but all of my guests came from me being in the right places at the right time and doing what I was supposed to do.
Now I'm very curious about that part. I get this. I get the second part of it, but why did you consider the first part as being disobedient if you would have taken any of those people that responded to the video as guests? What was your thoughts on that?
Well, it wasn't. It was just that people weren't serious about it. It just didn't fall.
Oh, they weren't the right fit.
It was like,
I got you.
Yeah, they just feel like, you know what? But I do take that back. I think it was 2 people that I interviewed. That's another story. When I interviewed 2 people, and one of them was about to make me quit again. And I was like, you know what? I cannot make. Yes, that's actually a very true story. One of them, it was a 2-hour interview. I was about to quit. I got in the car. I can be a bit emotional. I was crying my eyes out. Like, God, why do you have me in this position? I am done. In the middle of me crying, I got a message on Instagram. This young lady said, hey, I have a client. She's a doctor. She would love to be on your show. She's a psychologist. I think she would be a great fit. I could have dropped the phone. I was like, oh my goodness, God, I'm just about to give up. And I'm like, I wish she was here because I needed her on this episode, like bad. And so that was another guest. And so it just kept happening. So, but it wasn't about being disobedient with the people in the comments. Some of them, again, I actually did interview. It just didn't work out. In the other ones, it was just kind of like I'm interested, but all right, so let's get it going. Let's lock it in. But, things happen.
No, that's good. One of the things that I say to, business owners, folks that I coach is fundamentally, we have to focus on the through, right? So when I say that, I mean, when you have marketing set up, you have marketing channels. So you're focused on the through, right? You're running your marketing through these channels. But we can't get so bogged down with focusing on the through that we miss the from.
Hmm.
And that's what you just explained. The you putting out that video was the mechanism to get people coming through, but then God positioned certain people that were sent directly from him.
Yeah,
You copy?
that's good.
Yeah. So we
That's
just got to
good.
be conscious of that because sometimes we can get frustrated in our business because something fundamentally ain't working. Like I'm putting out these posts, I'm putting out this, I'm putting out that, and we get so focused on the through that it's like, yeah, but God still sent some from him. So you mad because you had 5 great ones from him, although they didn't come from this channel over here? But we do that though, right? Subconsciously, a lot of the time we do that. I do got a question before I move to the next thing. Uh, when you put that video out, do you think that that was more of a check your pride situation than anything else to see if you would have enough vulnerability and humility to put out a video asking people to come guess?
Ooh, you are good. You are so good. Like you be first off, the wordplay is one thing. Like the wordplay is crazy, but like for you to say pride this entire time in my head, I'm fighting my response with no, I was just afraid. I was just so afraid, but not realizing that I also said, who's gonna want to be on the show? Who's gonna reach out? Like, why do I have to ask people to be on the show? And oh, that's a good question. So you're asking me basically though about my pride that played a part in the situation.
Yeah, because I think all of us are faced with situations where, because I'm wired a lot like you in the sense that I will feel very strange to make that bold of an ask, right? It would almost feel as if I'm begging. But to your sister's point, like you're not begging, you legitimately need people, and if you ain't got no other way of doing it, then you're gonna have to make a video to tell people you need them. But then your pride kick in and be
Yeah,
like, I'm not putting myself out there like that. What if nobody respond and I already don't want to do it anyway because I feel like it's goofy?
that's good. Okay, let me answer this question. I want to, if you don't mind going down this street with me real quick, because
Yeah, let's
we
go.
gotta
I'm in the
go.
car. Let me put my seatbelt on.
So, shut up. Okay. Okay, to answer your question, you are right. It was definitely pride. It was definitely me thinking that people should come out and reach out to me. Not in the sense of thinking like I'm too big for somebody. It was just in the sense of like, why wouldn't they? You know what I'm saying? And I think a lot of times we mask it with, to me it was like initially as I was afraid. And I'm not gonna say I didn't have some fear in it, because I did have some fear,
Mhm.
but ultimately it was my pride that was really motivating the fear. And I said it was fear, but it was really pride motivating it, right? And a lot of times we mask things and we say it's one thing, but really it's another layer underneath that we haven't even gotten to, like the root of it, right? So when I said come down the street with me, so I remember a few years ago, last year maybe so, I have been praying about, that spirit of people pleasing. Like, God, I'm so tired of like feeling like a people pleaser, right? Took me to his word. I believe it was Ephesians. You know the scripture. It says, work with enthusiasm as though you are working for the Lord and not for man,
Mhm.
right? And I had to check myself, like, oh, every time you want to people please, are you trying to please man or are you trying to please God, right? But then God helped me to understand another layer underneath. You think it's people pleasing, but a lot of times it can be a form of manipulation. It's not necessarily that I'm trying to please you so much. And really, in actuality, you're manipulating the situation so that you can get the desired outcome, whether that is you looking at me and seeing that, oh, I'm just this perfect Patty, or you looking at me and seeing like, oh, she gonna get it figured out. You're trying to show up as a version of yourself who you truly authentically aren't, just to please somebody else in their response. And when God gave it to me like that, like, yeah, that's manipulation. I said, here I go. I'm not a manipulator. No, but you have manipulative tendencies when you people please. And we think people please and you think you're the victim of being a people pleaser, but no, you are being the manipulator in the situation. So thank you for riding down the street with me. I hope I didn't make too many crazy turns, because we have to get to the root of things and not mask it. Because if you keep masking things, what's fueling the outer layer, which you're covering up, which is manipulation, it's gonna your fear, your need to please others is just gonna keep fueling it. So all I gotta say is we gotta get to the root and stop masking the truth.
So that's the thing, right? When you look at it, a lot of the time as believers, we can hide behind the fact of like, oh, we serving people, we taking care of people. But the reality is we're supposed to serve people and please God. But we find ourselves serving God and pleasing people.
Yeah.
Right? So what does that look like when... So really, people pleasing is a form of idolatry at the end of the day.
Exactly.
If we got to be honest, because I'm saying I'm trying to do whatever to be okay in their likeness and on one accord with them, even if it's at the expense of being on one accord with him.
Yeah. And that's the second part, the idolatry. Keep going, I'll cut you off.
No, you ain't cut me off. I was done.
Okay, yeah. No, but that's the second part, is then it starts to humble you even more to realizing like you are creating an idol out of people. You idolize, you revere people more than you revere the Lord. And when you can, as a mature believer, start to recognize that, you get so shooken up, like, oh, no, let me not even play with him like that. Let me stop making excuses and layering, like, oh my goodness, I just have this people-pleasing spirit. No. I'm fearing man more than I'm fearing the Lord, and that's a big problem.
Facts.
Like that, I'm the type of person where I gotta get, like, I have to get kind of scared. Like, when he scares me, I be like, oh, I get it. I'm sorry. Like, I don't even got no room for excuses. Like, when he had to break it down to me like that, like, you don't fear me. And he just had this conversation the other day too. Like, even when it comes to the way we show up in life, the way we handle careers, family, friends, opportunities, whatever. If you truly feared me, you would show up in your life differently. And the saying goes of people pleasing. If you truly feared me, you wouldn't dare be concerned with man and the ways of this world. You would be concerned with who I am. So that's another part, the idolizing and the fear.
That's good. I mean, because when you look at Galatians 1:10, Paul says, because if I was worried about being liked by others, then why did I ever become a servant of Christ? So Galatians 1:10 is a constant reminder for us of how we need to approach business, of how we're supposed to leverage our platforms, of how we're supposed to express ourselves in lieu of those things, because the scripture literally says, if I was still worried about pleasing people and being liked by people, then why would I even become a servant of Christ? Because it come at a cost. Luke 14:28, Jesus talking to the disciples about, you better count the cost before you come do this thing. Like, it's going to cost you something if you really say you want to follow me and be of me and be like me and all the rest of it. But then when we looking at the opportunity of gain and the financial ramifications around it, all of a sudden it's like, I think God will be okay with, I mean, he know I got to make a living. So like, if I need to cuss a little bit and give myself a little bit of glory and adoration for the sake of entertaining people because they're going to pay me and then they're going to like me, and, but he know that I love him.
Nope.
It don't work like that.
And then it don't. And then it goes back to being clear when the words, I believe this is Paul too. He said, when I was a child, I acted like a child. But now that I am a man, I must act like a man. And so when you get off of milk and you start eating solid food, don't blend it back up and water it down again. Don't go back to old behaviors and start acting like a child. Do what he said to do. He even said it in Romans. It is worse for believers to know what to do and not do it than it is for somebody as a non-believer to not know and not do it. He said, when believers do it, you are literally putting Christ back on the cross. You're nailing him to the cross again. And that also struck me like, yeah, because we be knowing what we be doing and we still be like, oh, I'm going to do this instead. We all do it. We all do it. It's not an excuse. It's not the Lord knows my heart. He do know your heart. He know your heart. And he know your mind. And he know you know better.
Yeah. Fact.
So,
No, that's a really good
so
point
we got to.
because that's a really good point. So you made me think of something. So in January 2019, right? Almost, well, yeah, more than 6 years ago, I finally quit drinking. Now, when I quit drinking, I quit cussing. Now, I didn't make an announcement that I quit cussing. I probably made more of an announcement that I stopped drinking, but I speak with such a level of conviction, people wouldn't even realize I don't cuss. However, for the first, I just got on social media in 2018, so I was still kind of, you know what I'm saying, when I first got on there, and then I stopped drinking in January. So, because I didn't want to be on there living a double life. I didn't want to have to think about, oh, I'm posting scriptures in the morning, but I'm acting a fool at night, and they see me out doing this and doing that. So I was like, I just need to be consistent, right? But with that though, if I got to be honest, there's times that I even struggle as a communicator to where, like, I'm a linguist, right? Like I'm loquacious. I love the King's English, but I also love to cuss. You know what I mean? Like, I really enjoy language as a whole, and so I became very good at it. But I had to realize it was bringing me glory and not him. And so, although my content may be a little spicier, although I may be a little funnier if I was to insert some of them words back into my vocabulary, it will bring me more short-term gratification. But at the end of the day, if it's not bringing him glory, then the scripture is saying, to your point, as a believer, I'm not supposed to be playing in that field. Now, I know some of y'all out there believers, y'all cuss. I'm not tripping on y'all. This is my personal conviction, right? No different than it's not a sin to drink. It's a sin to be a drunkard. That was my personal conviction to stop drinking, right? And so, but I think that when we have these personal convictions, because I think it's James that says, when we become convicted of something and then we don't obey, then that becomes sin for us. For you, not sin for everybody. Like, stop looking at everybody else. He told you stop doing that, right? And so I just think that's important. I bring that up because, one, I know that you had a background of having a potty mouth, as I once did. And the funny part is, but he gifted us to communicate, right? The enemy's job is to pervert our gifts. So our gift is to be able to communicate in a way that honors God. The enemy's job is to get us to communicate in a way that honors him. So the gift is the gift nonetheless. It's just about how we use the gift and who we doing it for. And so, to that point, what do you say to the believer that's starting a podcast? I think the answer may be obvious, but I'm going to ask you anyway. Do you think that, because as I mentioned, I struggle, and it sounds like you as well, to where we felt like we wouldn't be as humorous or as entertaining without the usage of certain behavior and language. So if a podcaster thinks that they have to be a certain way in order to start a podcast, would you say they shouldn't?
No, I you don't have to be a certain. Hold on. Reframe that question.
Okay, I'm gonna
Give me
ask it
some
this
more
way.
context.
Would you be better off as a new podcaster not starting the podcast if you think you can't do it in a way that stays true to you and honor God, if you're a believer, than you would be to do something that will cause you to have to be a way to feel as if you're doing it and you're doing it well?
Huh. That is a really interesting. That's interesting you put it that way. Because in my spirit, I don't necessarily think you shouldn't do a thing because you don't have all of it figured out. Now, do I think you should be careful of what it is that you're doing and seek counsel and prayerfully move into that space? Absolutely. But I don't think you should handicap yourself because you don't think you are fully equipped yet. Because a lot of times as we do the thing, we begin to um to grow. We begin to evolve, if you will, right? Like for me, if I had that mindset, I would have another excuse to never do entertainment, to never do podcasting. And granted, I was also in a tug of war in the beginning of like, should we be cussing on this platform? Well, everybody else cuss, and it's kind of cool. So like maybe we should allow it. Now I did have boundaries. Not to say that I let everything fly. We not no smoking, no drinking on this show. That I didn't allow. But the cussing, I wavered on, right? But I wouldn't say that a person shouldn't do a thing because because they're not fully, equipped, or they're not fully evolved to that version of themselves. I think you should still try it if you feel convicted to do it.
Yeah.
Because like you said too, he gave me the gift to do it. Now the enemy perverted the gift, but the gift still stood. So if you feel gifted through God to do a thing, go do it. But allow him to sharpen and refine you, because he will. And he say it's two different scriptures. One scripture in Proverbs talks about the wounds of a friend is better than kisses from the enemy. But then God even talks about specifically how it's good for a father to punish a child than to not punish them at all. And then he said in a better context that I paraphrase, but it's good to get his correction, because his correction is going to evolve you to that version. So if you feel convicted to do it, go for it. Prayerfully, with wise counsel, and allow him to work through you, because he's going to refine some things in you.
Yeah, that's really
good.
That's a phenomenal answer. I would just also add to that this. Just remember, one, yes, started, come as you are, start as you are, evolve from there, right? But also remember this. If you feel like you have to be somebody inconsistent with who you would desire to be just to feel adequate, then understand that you're going to be married to whatever that choice is to continue to try to make you feel adequate. And so in that moment, you picking counterfeit over Christ, and you're never going to be fulfilled. You're always going to have to be somebody else. I look at Ray J when he was on Dr. Jamal Bryant podcast, and he basically, if you pay attention to his language and non-language, he basically was insinuating like, I done sold my soul and I don't know how, like, if I go the way I really want to go, I'm never going to collect the checks that I collect unless I be this way. But I'm miserable being this way. That's what he essentially articulated in 30 minutes in that interview. So this is what I'm saying. We can go against what we naturally feel like we should do for the sake of what we think most people would accept from us. But then you're married to that version of yourself if you want to continue to get that type of response. So to your point, you, in a lot of ways, this is why it's important that we see God to understand, is it his will for us to do it? Because if he do it, he always give us the ability before the assignment. Now, we may not discover that ability until we end that assignment, but he gives us the seed of ability before the assignment. We just got to work that out, right, as we go through the process, because faith comes by hearing, and hearing by the word of God, but it also comes by doing, right? And so I agree with you. I think before somebody be like, you know what, I'm not enough, I don't want to do it. But in that I'm not enough, just make sure that as a believer, Christ is the equalizer, not some version of yourself that you think is going to be better accepted.
Yeah, that is very, very true. Yeah, I agree with that.
So
A
by the
lot of
way,
times.
I was going to ask you, so to that, right? How important do you think it is to have authenticity in this space of podcasting right now, for sure?
Who else am I gonna be? You have to be. Being authentic is so important. It actually goes back to what you just said. You will be married to the person you create. Whatever avatar, whatever version of yourself you create, that is who you're married to. Some people get lost in it. Some people never really know who they truly are, and they never really discover those parts of themselves. Some people can identify quickly, like, oh, no, that's not really me. I truly don't agree with that. That's truly not my outlook, or whatever the case is. So being authentic is so important. It's like my mom always say, she's like, I don't like to lie. I don't tell lies because I have to remember the lie. If I have to remember the lie, that means I have to constantly, be living in this lie. She said, so I try my best. I'm just always honest. I'm going to tell the truth. And it's the same with creating this version of you. You have to remember parts of yourself that you created that aren't authentically you. So for me, is it Holy Spirit? It's something deeper to what you just said that God is trying to get across. Because when you're not being authentically yourself, you're losing parts of yourself. You're constantly diminishing who you truly are, and you can't find them. You're losing them, right? So it's like in the sense of how we talked about people pleasing. You're not being your authentic self. You're not giving the authentic response that you truly want to give. And I was reading Brene Brown, The Power of Vulnerability, and she talks about how it is better to have an uncomfortable moment of saying no versus having resentment for saying yes. And again, that's breaking that people pleasing spirit, right? Because then when you're saying yes to something you don't want to say yes to, you're resentful, but you also did not express true authenticity. You express a version of yourself that you created for them to like, hence manipulation, to them to get attached to who you want them to think you are. And when we aren't being authentically ourselves, I say too, you are also you are becoming a manipulator. You're manipulating your audience. You're manipulating people to believe who you are, who you say that you are, so that for them to enjoy your likeness or what have you. So for me, like, that's something, authenticity is so important. It is. And I try to even be more vulnerable too. To whereas I'm not masking my vulnerability or not masking it and also creating a version that I want people to see, like perfect Patty. Like, no, actually, sis goes through life too. Yeah. Marriage has its challenges. Like, you know what I'm saying? So it's all a part of it. But when you are authentic, you really get more people saved for real. Like, you get a lot more people saved when they realize, like, you know, they feel like they feel connected to you. Yeah. And you can help them. They feel as though you have expertise, but you also have experience. You understand. I can confide in you. Now, you know, looking up to you isn't far within reach. It's actually closer than I can even think. So that's good. That's another conversation. But yeah, authenticity is important.
That's good. That's good. And to your point with vulnerability, excuse me. To your point with vulnerability, how did you get past being camera shy? Because clearly you're not anymore. And there's some people that's out there, and the only thing that's stopping them from doing this is they just like, when I hit that button, I don't know what to say. I don't know what to do anymore, right? And it's like, well, you see yourself every day, and everybody else sees you every day. So nothing changes when the camera is recording. Like, you look the same, right? The birthmark is still there. So like, how did you get beyond that? And what would you tell someone that they would need to do to get beyond that as well?
So I'm going to tell you what I tell my clients who get camera shy. I always say, look at that camera. That is an object. It's not going to say nothing to you. It's not going to do nothing to you. Only thing that is stopping you from giving your all in front of this camera is whatever story you're telling yourself. So you're telling yourself millions of people are going to see it. What if one person sees this? But again, I imagine people are going to be on, you know, but we shooting for the stars. So you're right. Millions of people may see it. So let's just go with that narrative. But they're not here. Like, it's a camera. But even if that is the case, we'll cross that bridge. But I have to look at the reality of the situation. Like, whatever story you're telling yourself is what you're believing. So if I'm telling myself this object is going to beat me down or whatever, I'm going to believe it. If I tell myself this is literally just a camera. And now, granted, that's probably very surface level, very high level, but like, that was an honest conversation I had to say with myself because I used to be afraid of the camera. Like, this sounds so silly. I was so afraid as if I thought I was going to be shooting bullets or something back. Like, it's a camera. I had to have this, like, realistic conversation. Yeah. Like, yo, you know, this is not going to do that, right? And again, everybody may not be able to get that realization. But, again, I think it goes back to, who are we pleasing? Are we doing this with enthusiasm as though we're working for the Lord? Or are we doing it because we're afraid of what man is going to say? I remember when I was on the news, and a part of that fear tried to creep on up. Like, oh, since you on the news, you know people watching. Oh, you know they watching. And instead I was like, they're gonna watch, so I'm gonna give this camera my all.
Yeah.
Because you're right, they are watching.
Yeah.
So I'm gonna be myself. I'm gonna say what I want to say and say it how I want to say it, or how the Lord gives me or prompts me to say it, and I'm gonna let it be that. And if I mess up, guess what? I'm human.
Yeah.
I am not perfect. Only person that's perfect is Jesus, and that's a yoke to carry. I'm glad I don't have to carry that yoke. I'm glad I can be like, listen, I messed up.
Yeah.
I'm human.
Okay. Well,
So yeah.
I'm always being respectful of time, right? And I want to respect yours, but I also, if you don't mind, want to give the viewers some very practical things they can walk away from with respects to the pod. Okay. So the first thing is, if I'm starting a pod and I have no idea what I should start it about, what would be your recommendation as to how you figure that out?
What are you the most experienced in? What can you say that you're gifted and that you're very knowledgeable in? What areas? So some people are very knowledgeable in music. Some people are knowledgeable in fashion. What areas does your expertise lie? And then from there, you can begin to build on that, and then you can start to decide, well, what should my podcast be about?
Okay.
Don't start talking about stuff you don't know about.
Yeah. That also makes it harder to talk in front of the camera, right? When you legitimately don't know what you're talking about, now you got two different battles that you fighting when you turn the video on. That's a good point. That's a really good point.
Yeah.
So another one then would be like, okay, I see some people doing virtual like what we're doing right now, some do in person, some do solo, some do with the get like what is there a right answer? Is there an easier way to start? Like if it was a beginner, how would you recommend that they probably would start out?
That's a good question. Okay, removing me from the equation. If you were a beginner, well, okay, if you're a beginner, right? That's like going to therapy. Some people are in person, guests. Some people are virtual. I'm more of a virtual person. I'm graduated now. I can go in person, but then I didn't feel that comfortable having an in-person session, right? So I would say, where is your comfort level?
Okay.
So if your comfort level is, I can sit in person, body language, have a conversation with somebody, go for it. That is now, as far as podcasting, that was me. I'm in person. I want to see you. I want to interact with you. I'm big on having audiences. That's me. But if you're somebody that's like, I'm not really with that, by all means, do digital. Because when you do digital, it's less formal. You know what I'm saying? I'm in my house shoes, little do y'all know. But you're more comfortable. You know what I'm saying? And it's more accessible. You can reach more people. I have, I prefer in person, but I know it limits my guests. So if I have somebody in LA, if we don't, you're not coming to Detroit, I'm not coming to LA, you know what I'm saying? That could kind of create a barrier. And as my mentor, Brian Adamson, would say, your digital presence is important. So I would say, yeah, whether you do in person or not, you should always have a digital aspect to your show, for sure.
That's good. That's good. Because I was just thinking that some people would be like, you know what, I'm going to just hide behind the audio. And it's like, you could start there, but you definitely don't want to stay there, right? Only anyway.
Yeah.
How much?
Not in today's time.
Yeah, like not today. How much money do you think one needs to have in order to start their pod? Because at some point you were some early 20, late teen, something starting yours. Like, what would you say?
I started with no money. So when we were gonna do podcasting, we were like, oh, we can use this app called Anchor and just start recording the audio. And that's when it first came out. So if you are, again, a person who wants to just kind of ease your way in, you can start with $0. You can literally use the app Anchor. There's so many more apps now. You can use your voice memos app. All phones have a recording memo app. You record your voice memo, record the conversation, then you upload it to the platform. So you can literally start with $0. It doesn't have to be so intricate, and just allow yourself to build up. But also, one of the key things that I have learned is your relationships. A lot of times we are connected to people with access and we haven't tapped into it yet. So I was grateful or fortunate enough to have been had a group of friends who knew someone who had a membership at a studio, and we were able to get the studio for free because the person was getting it for free because they lived in that county. So when you tap into your relationships, you really tap into access. So two things: use that phone; it's free. You can start with $0, or start thinking a little, think deeper, and tap into your relationships.
That's good. That's real good. So you've interviewed quite a few celebrities in all walks of life. Okay. Do you believe, okay, so for the person that's out there that's getting started, that thinks that they have to interview celebrities in order for their podcast to be successful, do you agree with that statement?
No, I disagree. There are so many untapped into stories that people need to know about. I think if anything, you should be interviewing more people outside of the influential space more, because obviously you're giving them a platform, but you are helping people to know, like, you're really getting like real stories. You know what I'm saying? Like, think about it. Most of our audience are people who need help, you know? And sometimes, and this isn't against the celebrities, because I enjoy having both conversations, you know what I'm saying? But sometimes when you have someone who's like on a higher platform, your audience can't connect as well. But when you have someone who they can relate to, like, oh, I experienced that too, I'm dealing with that too, then they kind of, connect more. But again, obviously, yes, having, influential people, it does help your platform to some capacity, but also too having, people who may not have as much influence, it doesn't hurt your platform. If anything, there's a podcaster from Detroit that I really admire. His stories, he interviews, people who are up and coming. They aren't necessarily at the highest of their peak, but they're up and coming, and I feel as though he gets more engagement and more influence that way, because he's shining light on people who actually have something to share, and it's a quantity. It's a large quantity of these conversations. You know what I'm saying? The quality is just as great.
Yeah.
So yeah, I think it works both ways. If you get the opportunity, for sure you should take it, but you shouldn't just limit yourself to only celebrities.
That's
like,
good.
no.
That's good. That's really good. So last couple, and I'm gonna get you out of here. So the first one is,
I love it here.
we love to have you here. How do I make some money? Right? Like, you've been doing this for a while now. I would imagine you monetize your business in some form or fashion. If I'm new, or maybe I'm doing it already, which 70% of podcasters don't monetize because they don't even know how. What are some different ways in which I could generate revenue from having a platform?
First, you have to believe you deserve the money. Let's start there. You have to really believe, I deserve this money. That's number one. A lot of times, going into the podcasting industry, it's a new industry. People don't believe that they deserve to get paid. So they don't, whether that's charged for their guests, whether that's putting on events, whatever it could be. People don't think they deserve it because podcasting isn't a W-2 job or what have you, right? And so it's a new form of business. I say start there. That was one of my struggles. I would be spending a lot of money with production, videography, editing, like you name it. And I never thought I deserved for people to have to pay to be on my show. So hence, that's one of the ways to monetize. When I realized, and then when people questioned me about it, it was like, hold on, you do realize this costs money, right? Studio time, all of those things. So once I realized that I deserve to get paid, people respect that. They respect how you respect yourself. So that was one of the ways, being able to, have a fee. But don't think you just have fees without having something in return. You have to also serve your guests now. So you have to decide, what does that fee incorporate? You might have your overhead, but what are you also delivering to your guests? So without going too deep into the weeds, if you have marketing aspects, if you have, different ways to continue to promote their brand, that is important. But that's one of the ways. Obviously, you have traditional ways of sponsorships. You have merchandise. Those are very traditional. But what's happening now is a lot of podcasters are creating events in community spaces. So Now I have an audience. Now I have ticket sales. They're going on tours. Whether you're a podcaster or an artist, artists make their most money when they go on tour. I'm just saying.
That's right.
So as a podcaster, once you start to build, you decide you want to go on tour. That is another way to generate revenue. And obviously having those sponsorships, I feel as though are more secured streams of revenue. So whether that's with a small business, whether that's with a corporate company, being able to lock in those secure sponsorships will keep your show afloat. I'm giving away a lot of gems.
You are. Keep them coming though, because I'm over here like. So when you think about that. So okay. So if I'm a business owner and my business is doing well, and then I start a podcast, which in my opinion is another business, could I then have my business that's already doing well sponsor my podcast?
Why not? I was just sharing online that it's important that if you are a business owner who wants to have a podcast, if you hire a business owner, you probably should have a podcast. Like you really should, because it ties into your the business ties into the podcast for one, but for two, you are you're positioning yourself to be that expert, right? Now people can understand what it is that your business offer. Now you are getting more clients, but then in addition to that, now you are able to create other, streams of revenue outside of the business. But I always say, especially for informative purposes, businesses should have podcasts. You can really give people a firsthand experience of what you offer, why they should work with you. You are able to give them sauce, just like social media. We sell and tell stories on social media, little do we really realize. So why not do it through a podcast and then direct your audience to a specific avenue or funnel, if you will, and now they can continue to connect with you. Now they want to know what other service and products that you have, because the show was so good. I love talking to you. I love hearing your voice. How can I stay connected to you? Like, that's all part of it. That's how it happens. So.
Yeah, that's really good. That's really good. So we got sponsorships. We could charge for guesting. So as long as we serve them at a high level and they can get a return on that investment because of what you're helping them accomplish. Was there another one that you mentioned?
Merchandise is a traditional one. Okay. Audiences having events. Events is becoming a popular one.
You do a couple of those. Like that looks like a big ordeal when you do it. Would that kind of coincide with the going on the road type of thing a little bit? Would you say, or you think that that's even?
Do I think that's even what?
Or that's even in its own category outside of like going on tour to have like your own live event or whatnot?
Yeah, so they can go hand in hand. Okay. So having the live event itself is good because then you can have, it's the same thing, right? So you have the live audience and then you just go into a different state, or you're making it more virtual so where people can, tap in from all over the world. So that's also another great way to get more people and get more reach to people. So you got to think about the digital component, and then people want to network. They want to get around other individuals. They want to be in person. So I love an experience. So we try to give people like just the best experience when we do our live audience.
Yeah, that's really good. That's really good. So let's see. We went all over the place. And we're going to have to do a part 2, by the way, right? Like you already clear on that, right? We're going to have to do this again.
Yeah, I'm clear.
Because I just feel like we barely have scratched the surface, but I just wanted to be respectful of your time today. So if I'm out there, I'm eager, right? I want to get this thing done. I'm still a little leery about, okay, maybe I don't want to use my iPhone, right? Maybe I really do want to get some equipment. I really can't figure out, is my white wall behind me okay? Or do I'm trying to figure it out. I know I got something to say, but I'm very self-conscious about how I'm going to get that message out in a way that feels like quality and, the aesthetic and all the rest of it. So do you help people kind of figure that piece out, or like, where are you at in your business? Do you even offer any kind of services like that?
Yeah, so that's a good question. A lot of people struggle as far as aesthetics and like showing up a certain way, having the right equipment, and even being mindful of their budget. So we actually enjoy doing that because we've been through every phase, every stage of like 0 to 100 and being able to evolve. So that's something that I enjoy helping our clients with. Like you said, so we even turn around, Brian. They can see. They can see just the work, okay, that is put in.
Yeah.
And even right here too. So yeah, we definitely we help people go through. We can consult with them and help them to actually we build out the studio for them and tell you just the right, the right products you need. Some people like, okay, I don't want to be hands-on. I want nothing to do. Just you go in, you work your magic, and I'ma just call me when you're done type thing. So we do that too, because as business owners, especially, you have a business to run. You don't really have time to be
and by the way, right? Because I didn't want to put you out there if you weren't doing that for everybody else, right? I know that we had something that we figured out, but I will say this: I'm low on the tech side, right? So the setup that they gave me is very simple. I've got a camera recording me while I'm recording this. Like, it's super dope and super simplified. As they would say, even a caveman could do it, right? So that's what I am in this particular context, right? I'm great at doing this, but all the rest of it, not so much. Mykeya, where can people find you, connect with you? Should they want to learn more, check out your pod, or even potentially set up a consult to see if they may be a good fit for you to help?
Yeah. So, first of all, Brian, thank you for having me.
Mm-hmm.
This has just been so fun.
My pleasure.
I don't be wanting to leave, but I know we let it talk. But if people do want to find me, I'm Mykeya Latia on Instagram, Facebook if you want, LinkedIn as well. And then we are obviously the host of the Unlocked Past Tense with Keys podcast. So you can find me there if you are interested in being a part of like either being on the show or even, getting your podcast built out. You can go to unlockwithkeys.com, just fill out on the form, the contact me form, and we will take it from there. Yeah, or if you're on Instagram, that's more of your avenue. Click the link in the bio.
Amazing. Listen, y'all, please let us know in the comments how you have enjoyed this conversation today. And let me know if you want Mykeya back. She coming back anyway, but I want to know from y'all how much y'all want her back. And no, this has been super helpful for me today. I feel like I learned something every time we talk. And I just pray that this was helpful and provided hope for those that did get an opportunity to watch and listen. So thank you again for your time today, and look forward to doing it again.
Thank you so much for having me, and to the B&B community, thank y'all for having me too.